Blessed is the man who has not walked in the counsel of the ungodly, and has not stood in the way of the sinners, and has not sat in the seat of the evil men. But his will is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he shall meditate day and night. He shall be like the tree which is planted by the streams of water, which shall yield its fruit in its due season, and its leaf shall not scatter, and in everything he does he prospers. Not so are the ungodly, not so, but rather they are like the chaff which the wind scatters upon the face of the earth. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in judgment, nor the sinners in the counsel of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish.
Alleluia. Why did the nations rage and the peoples meditate on vain things? The kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers gathered together against the Lord and against his Christ, saying, Let us break through their bonds and cast away their yoke from us. He who dwells in the heavens shall laugh at them, and the Lord shall mock them. Then he shall speak to them in his anger, and in his wrath he shall trouble them. But I have been established king by him on Zion, his holy mountain, proclaiming the ordinance of the Lord. The Lord said to me, You are my son, today I have begotten you. Ask me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and your authority to the end of the earth. You shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. You shall crush them as a potter's vessel. Now understand, O kings, be instructed, all you who judge the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice in him with trembling. Take hold of instruction, lest the Lord be angry, and you perish from the way of righteousness. Whenever his wrath shall be suddenly kindled, blessed are all who trust in him.
Alleluia. O Lord, why have they who afflict me multiplied? Many have risen upon me. Many say unto my soul, There is no salvation for him in his God. But you, O Lord, are my supporter, my glory, and the elevation of my head. With my voice I cried unto the Lord, and he heard me out of his holy mountain. I laid down and slept, and I arose, for the Lord is he who supports me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people who surround me, who have risen upon me. Rise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you have smitten all who are enemies to me without cause. The teeth of the sinners you have broken. Salvation is the Lord's, and his blessing is upon his people. Alleluia.
When I cried out, God of my righteousness heard me. In tribulation you have made room for me. Have compassion upon me, O Lord, and hear my prayer. O you sons of man, how long will your hearts be heavy? Why do you love vanity and seek falsehood? Know you that the Lord has made his Holy One wondrous. The Lord hears me when I cry to him. Be angry and do not sin. Feel sorrow upon your beds for what you say in your hearts. Offer the sacrifice of righteousness and trust in the Lord. Many say, Who can show us the good things? The light of your countenance, O Lord, has been shined upon us. You have given gladness to my heart. They have been multiplied with the fruit of their wheat and wine and oil. I shall both lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, have caused me to dwell in hope.
Hearken, O Lord, to my words, and consider my cry. Observe the voice of my supplication, my King and my God, for to you, O Lord, I will pray. In the morning you shall hear my voice. In the early morning I shall stand before you, and you will look upon me. For you are not a God who desires iniquity, nor shall he who works evil dwell in you. Nor shall the transgressors abide before your eyes. You have hated, O Lord, all who work iniquity. You will destroy all who speak falsehood. A man of blood and deceit the Lord abhors. But as for me, according to the multitude of your mercy, I shall enter your house. I shall worship before your holy temple in your fear. Guide me, O Lord, in your righteousness. For the sake of my enemies, make my way straight before you. For in their mouth there is no truth. Their heart is vain. Their throat is an open tomb. With their tongues they have done deceit. Judge them, O God, let them fall down in all their counsels. Wipe them out according to the abundance of their ungodliness. For they have provoked you, O Lord, but let all who hope in you be glad. They shall rejoice forever, and you shall dwell in them, and all who love your name shall be proud in you. For you, O Lord, have blessed the righteous. As a shield of favor you have crowned us. Alleluia.
O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, nor chasten me in your wrath. Have mercy on me, O Lord, for I am weak. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled, and my soul is grievously troubled. But you, O Lord, how long? Return, deliver my soul. Revive me for the sake of your mercy. For in death there is no one who is remembering you, and in Hades who is able to give thanks to you. I became wearied in my groaning. I shall wash my bed every night. I shall wet my couch with my tears. My eye is troubled because of anger. I have grown old because of all my enemies. Depart away from me, all who do iniquity, for the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord has heard my petition. The Lord has accepted my prayer. All my enemies shall be put to shame and greatly troubled. They shall be turned back and put to shame speedily.
Alleluia. O Lord, our Lord, how wonderful your name became in all the earth. For the greatness of your splendor has been exalted above the heavens. Out of the mouth of babes and sucklings you have prepared praise, because of your enemies, that you might put down an enemy and avenger. For I will regard the heavens, the work of your fingers. The moon and stars you have established. What is man that you have been mindful of him? Or the Son of Man that you have visited him? You made him a little less than angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor, and you have set him upon the works of your hands. You have put everything under his feet, all the sheep and oxen, and the beasts of the field, and the birds of the sky, and the fish of the sea that pass through the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how wonderful your name became in all the earth. Alleluia.
Save me, O Lord, for the godly one has ceased, and the truths have diminished from the children of men. Every one has spoken vanities to his friend. Deceiving lips are in their hearts, and thus they have spoken with their hearts. The Lord shall wipe out every deceiving lip and every tongue that speaks great words. Those who have said, "We will magnify our tongues, our lips are our own, who is Lord over us?" Because of the misery of the poor and the sighing of the oppressed, now I will rise, says the Lord, I will set them in salvation, and I will be revealed in it. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in the fire, proved in the earth, purified 7 times. You, O Lord, shall keep us, and shall preserve us from this generation and forever. The ungodly walk around according to your greatness. You have prolonged the lives of the children of men.
Alleluia. How long, O Lord, do you forget me forever? How long do you turn your face away from me? How long do I put these counsels in my soul, and these sorrows in my heart for the whole day? How long does my enemy exalt over me? Look, hearken to me, O Lord, my God, enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep in death. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed against him. Those who distress me will rejoice if ever I stumble. But I have hoped in your mercy. My heart will rejoice in your salvation. I will praise the Lord who has done good to me, and I will sing to the name of the Lord Most High. Alleluia.
O Lord, who shall abide in your dwelling place, and who can rest upon your holy mountain? It is he who walks blamelessly, doing righteousness, speaking truth in his heart. He who has not spoken deceitfully with his tongue, neither has done evil to his friend, nor taken up a reproach against his neighbors. The evil worker is disdained before him, but he glorifies those who fear the Lord. He gives oath to his friend and does not turn away from him. He has not given his money on usury, and has not received bribes against the godly. He who does these things shall not stumble forever.
Alleluia. Keep me, O Lord, for I have hoped in you. I said to the Lord, you are my Lord, and you have no need of my goodness. He has manifested his wonders to his saints who are in his earth, and he has wrought all his desires in them. Their ailments have been multiplied who hasten after another god. I will not assemble their meetings of blood, nor make mention of their names with my lips. The Lord is the portion of my inheritance and my cup. You are he who brings my inheritance back to me. The measuring lines have fallen to me among the best, and my inheritance is confirmed for me. I will bless the Lord who has given me understanding. My reins too have instructed me even till the night. I foresaw the Lord always before me. He is on my right hand, that I should not be moved. Therefore my heart rejoiced and my tongue exulted. Moreover also my flesh shall live in hope. Because you shall not leave my soul in Hades, neither shall you suffer your Holy One to see corruption. You have made known to me the ways of life. You will fill me with joy with your face. Delight is in your right hand forever. Alleluia.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims the work of his hands. Day to day utters speech, and night to night proclaims knowledge. There are no speeches or words in which their voice is not heard. Their sound has gone out upon all the earth, and their words have reached to the ends of
congregation. But when it said there would be, let me see if I can find the right verse for you. This is in Matthew today, just like we read. It said there would never be days like this, like ever again. I'm trying to find the right verse for that one. Anyway, we won't dwell on that too much. But basically, as I mentioned, the first part of that gospel, it was the destruction of the temple. Maybe I'll use this board a little bit. So as I mentioned, this is Matthew chapter 24. Okay. So we said Matthew chapter 24. And we said the verses up until 22. It was like probably 1 to 22. We're referencing actually the destruction of the temple. Okay? And I didn't mention this in the morning because the kids were around, but basically when it says that it didn't ever get this bad before, and it may not ever get this bad again, is because what happened in the destruction of the temple here is that Titus, imagine this is the temple. I wonder how it really looked, but we'll call this the temple over here.
Can you use a different marker, Will?
I can try. Better?
There we go.
All right, here we go. This is the temple. Okay? What they did was, it was, let's call this a top view. Okay? And then there were walls around the temple. Okay? And what Titus did, the general, at that in the 70 AD actually, I'll just write that, is that he cut off all water and all food, so that all the Jews, I mean, he was literally, like I said this morning, he tried to end the Jews. Like, if it was possible for him to eradicate all the Jews, like, this is worse than Hitler, basically. He was ready to go beyond that. And he cut water and food, so all the people began to do what? If you have no water, I'm going to throw this question out to you. If I have no water and no food, what do people resort to at that point? Desperation, right? That was the meaning. We talked about this last week. Abomination of desolation. So inside the temple, Holy of Holies, that Titus general, he put a temple of himself here. Okay, but we're not talking about that now. What did the reason that we're saying it never got this bad is that the people actually started to practice cannibalism. Yes, that's what they were doing. That's how bad things are. So that's when the verse says, you know, it never. I wish I had the right verse in front of me, but maybe somebody can flip through Matthew 24 when it says you will never see days like that again. But anyway, that's basically what happened at that point. Okay, that's why lawlessness really did abound at that time. And if you imagine you're like living in this time, you know, and you're seeing this, I mean, the love of many can grow cold, right? If you start seeing people acting like beasts, you know, I can see that. Now, let's go to our day. We're now in what? 2023, right? Okay. So that was this type of persecution. Now we have a different type of persecution. What I was mentioning, and again, I didn't bring this up. This is more for like the parents, stuff like that. There's a lot of like kind of, we live in tumultuous times. There's a lot of secular ideas that are being like forced upon us. I mentioned a couple of things earlier in the morning. Can anybody, from your own experience, you guys should be able to rattle these off like nothing. Where are you guys seeing this outside views being forced on school? Number one is school, of course, right? Where else? Yeah? Phone, okay. I can call the phone maybe like advertisements, I guess? Media, okay. What else? But media's tricky, right? I mean, you go to it. right? And then it gives you whatever it wants. So you got to be careful with this. Ads, you don't, right? You're looking at something else, and then something just hits you from the side. So that's why I put, in my world, that's where I can get hit. Anything else?
Government.
Oh, government.
I mean, not necessarily this one, but like other, like Canada, like for example.
Oh, like liberal governments. Okay. Oh, okay. So this can be
Sorry.
liberal government, like
Sorry, I'm getting controversial here.
no, but liberal government. You're saying like state to state, then, right? Like a state like California is very different than Missouri. Okay. All right.
Work.
We'll put a little question mark for that, so we won't get to work. I like that one. Yeah. So I was gonna mention that actually. Even if you're not. Oh yeah, right? Neighbors. You know what? I heard something like that from one of the guys. Like, yeah, some people they're in a little bit of a sticky situation, and nothing is in their hands. But you know, people are people, right? They'll blame you for something that isn't necessarily your fault. Okay, this is what I'm saying. This is what I mentioned earlier today. We have two ways. Okay, you can allow the external circumstances. Pope Shunet has a wonderful sermon on this. It's called Reassurance. And I actually, maybe I'll send it on the WhatsApp. I'll try to get it sent or whatever. And he talks about, like, you got to realize, like, it's like driving a car. So I could be driving the car myself, or I can go ahead and let a more experienced driver go ahead and take the wheel. Who's the experienced driver? Let God drive my life, right? I try to follow His will. If He's the one driving, and I can just sit in the passenger seat and He can just take me from A to B, then everything is perfect. But unfortunately, we don't have that faith to just watch the car driving. You say, God, there's a pothole. You try to tug at the wheel. God, there's like a bump. No, you got to make a left here. And who's driving then? Is it you or God? You got to ask yourself. So a lot of times we allow these external circumstances in our life to change us, to get the better of us. You know, that's kind of what I'm saying. And that's when the love of many will grow cold. If we allow these to change our hearts, here's our heart, okay? It can literally destroy your heart, to make your heart like to be, I don't know what the right word is, like it's kind of almost empty, you know? Christ is willing to, I hate to put these initials, but I usually write out the whole name, but Jesus Christ, JC, he wants to come and dwell in here, but if I allow all these circumstances to come in here, then he has no place. He said, you have to love me with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. Once I push him out, then there's no room for him there. And he's sensitive to this. If you want the world, I'm not going to force my way into your heart. If you want to allow these circumstances, even the ones that are being pushed against us, to change you, to take my place, go ahead. I don't want this. Christ is telling you, please don't do it. But if you want, he stands at the door, like that picture, and he knocks. But there's no handle on the door, right? He doesn't force himself in. You have to open from the inside. The other way, like I said, there was two ways. You can allow all this lawlessness to make this cold, or you can use it in the opposite way. This is where things become interesting for us today. You have to use this, and like I was saying, I'll just go over maybe the things I wrote down. A lot of secularist ideas being forced upon us, whatever, government, education, like we said, and these equity initiatives or whatever, they're in hiding, right? The devil doesn't, he presented an apple to, or a fruit to Eve and told her, look, it's pleasing to the eye. He didn't say, if you eat this, you're going to die. He said, no, you're not going to die. He would go to lengths to lie to the human so he can make them fall into sin. Okay, I'll lie, whatever it takes, right? That's how the devil does things, okay? But he doesn't tell you, oh, you're going to take this and die. He will cover it. He will, give it a nice, shiny, glimmer so it can attract your eye. Then you go and you grab and you find the poison in the fruit, okay? That's usually how sin goes. So these equity initiatives, right? It seems like we're supposed to treat people fairly and do this and do that. Some of them are like, I can say, I would put like sexually deviant, LGBTQ, whatever, these type of things that are in hiding, okay? They're forcing the normalization of this on kids, on adults. You go to work, your boss has a friend who's having a marriage and they happen to be a male and a male, or a woman and a woman, and your boss is pressuring you to attend this wedding. What do? Do you get canned, or do you stand up for what you believe in? You can. I like that one. Call in sick. You can say, "Oh, that day I can't make it. I got a sore throat." But we'll see what the boss says when you feel better. That's the problem. But you get what I'm saying. You kind of have to squirm a little bit, right? Honestly, I thank God in my day when I was in the world working, I didn't have to deal with a lot of this stuff. But God willing, if it was me, let's just say, hey, I don't think I'll be able to attend. I don't know if I support exactly what's going on. God be with you, and that's it. The discussion would end for me at that point. It's not, once you start compromising on these things, it snowballs. It's like, well, okay, this one, you're just attending. Then, oh, that wasn't so bad. Then you're like, all of a sudden, protesting with signs for, the rights, gay rights, all this. You'd be surprised at how quickly the world can suck you in. So if school. Yeah, go ahead.
I was listening to a program on TV, and they were talking about this issue, and there's a book out that basically says that this is a very systematized effort to take religion out of society completely, because their goal is, whether you're Christian or Muslim or whatever, their goal, and it's Satan driving it, their goal is to basically, sort of catch you and eliminate religious freedom as it exists.
It's quite possible.
It shows how it's very planned.
Right.
So we have to be ready to endure this suffering.
Okay. That was the verse that we're coming to. And he who endures to the end shall be saved. To the end. I'm going to highlight this word. Shall be saved. Okay?
And some of it may even be attacking the church at some point.
So, okay, I kind of agree, I'm sure there are organizations. George Soros. I don't want to get into too much of that stuff now, but a lot of these liberal organizations that fund this type of stuff. It doesn't mean that there could be just sorry to say this, like a gay man or lesbian or whatever the case may be, and they want to be treated equally. There are people who have that mindset, and I'm going to be the first one to say our church is not good at all with how to deal with this interface. Like, if we know somebody's in that community, I don't know what's going to happen when they walk in the church. God be with them as well. We have to be somewhat accepting as we are of a thief, as accepting as we are of a liar, as accepting as we are of any other sinner. To a certain extent. There is the danger, maybe you want to bring this up, is that, yes, there's a danger that they can spread what they're doing if they're not coming to be repentant.
Yeah.
So that's probably the disclaimer we want to put, is like the Coptic church in general, not this church. Of course, this church will accept everybody because we're the best, but what I'm saying is we have to have that disclaimer, is that person should be coming with the spirit of repentance. If they're coming to do something else, then maybe they shouldn't be as welcome. We do what we can to convince, rebuke, exhort, but there's a certain point where there is a danger because this is a community. One person can affect the other, can infect the other. from
This
some.
is exactly
Yes.
what happened, Abuna, in the churches and in the schools, and our kids get to see this kind of not in their mind absorb, and they can treat him equally.
Yeah,
No.
the equity.
And
That's
then
what I'm saying.
That is, and what it goes in the school, I think it should also to protection of the church, the God's
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
We have to be vigilant to see
Yeah.
what's happening.
That's a good point. Is that actually as parents? Yeah. As parents, anyway, we should be more involved in like the community. If there's something that we don't necessarily agree with, why not be involved in like the school board? Go to the meetings. Speak your mind. You have a right to say, hey, don't force these things on my kids. As well. We have our own beliefs as well. Don't like brainwash my kids. You have a right to say that. Yeah.
Going back to the church.
Yes.
Whoever joined the church.
Yes.
The people who come to the church,
Hmm.
they come like mixed up, put it this way.
They can.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they want to change
Yes.
what we have in the church
Sometimes.
to their
Sometimes.
beliefs.
Sometimes. Yeah.
When you come to the church here,
Yeah.
you'll be willing to understand,
Right. To repent. To change.
to join. But you come here with understanding, you're liberal, and you want to do this, and you want to do that. and
Right.
so forth. You should not be in this church,
Well,
okay? I mean,
Well,
you
you-
should, because you should be prepared to accept
I see what you're
the
saying.
word of God. Any church, they practice the word of God. So
Yeah.
the resentment here is not resenting me.
It's not
or resenting
personal.
her.
It's not personal. You're saying.
It's not personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's resentment to accept. Just today.
Just
When I'm
today.
taking-
What do you mean just today?
Just today, when I'm taking the bread and blood,
Hmm.
the body,
The body.
the blood of Jesus, what came in my mind? Jesus gave this to who? The disciples. And what he told them? Take that, or eat that. So this comes from Jesus. So that means all the people coming in the line today are disciples. Right?
Something like that.
Something like that.
I think they should understand that they were in the position of discipleship. So they have to carry the message. What when
Oh, I
Jesus gave them that, he told them go.
Yes.
What go means what?
At least. Not everybody's given to preach,
Yeah, exactly.
but at least by your example,
Yeah.
yes, you should live as a Christian, of course. Yeah, and we say that before the communion is that they should be Oriental Orthodox. Sometimes before communion I say, you should be confessing regularly. Make sure to have no hard feelings in your heart towards anybody. If you have a grudge, this by itself will deny you
Exactly.
from taking communion. So we have this. Of course, you should be abiding as best you can. That's the problem. There are strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly.
As best you can, living a fully repentant life, coming to approach the mysteries. Fine. But then there are those who still want to learn. Okay, let's say they do have a distorted view compared with, what Christ has taught us. There's nothing wrong with accepting somebody at least till the creed. That's for the catechumens. That's in the old days when someone was practicing or learning to be baptized. They would close the doors of the church at that point until everybody was not baptized. It's time to go. That's what that part was for. With at least they should be able to observe. At least they should be able to feel somewhat welcome, and then have someone explain to them, this is what we believe, right? But there are people who can be, like you said, can be vicious, like you said, and they can have an evil intent. Even then, you should still, you as a Christian, you should be so Christ-like to absorb the evil. Don't be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Imagine we all were very high-level Christians, may God give us all this grace, he cannot injure anybody that way. But we're not. We have all of us, we have our weaknesses and things like that, and there are kids, and there are this, and there are that. We have other calculations for why, we deal with people in a certain way or another, But if somebody, like you said, is, like I made that disclaimer, whatever he is coming repentant, I say, ahlan wa sahlan. I say, welcome at any time. Not to partake of the mysteries, they'll still have to, either if they need chrismation or whatever the case may be, if they're Coptic, they need to just confess, whatever the case may be, to be prepared so they won't take the body and blood unworthily. I don't do this as like a punishment, or St. Paul doesn't say this is a punishment. He's looking out for their salvation. If you partake of the body and blood unworthily, he said people get sick. People die, right? So this is what St. Paul is warning us. Like let's slow it down a little bit. Let's not just jump in to the body and blood. Let's prepare, all of us.
Yeah.
Those who come with different ideas, or those who even come with the same ideas. We have to do our best to prepare to accept the body and blood. It's a great grace. It's like a fire that can clean you or can burn you. You have to decide. By the way you live, that's the way it will act upon you. Okay? Now that we're past the PC political discussion, we're going to move on to this specific verse. Why did I highlight the word end here? He who endures to the end shall be saved. If we look at two people, right? You look at the right-hand thief and you look at Judas. If you look at their lives, you would have one, here's the black one again, whose life all the way up until his end was perfect, was very good, right? He was, I have him here. Okay. You have Judas over here, and you have right-hand thief, or R thief. And if we look at their timeline in life, Judas's life was good. Like he was a Jew, and then he lived all the way until some point, we'll call this betrayal point, and then his end became a very shameful ending. And the right-hand thief lived a very downward kind of life, but his end kind of skyrocketed, and he got a check at the end, So that's
smart thief.
Yes, he was. He stole the kingdom, as they say. But my point is, it's at this point that we're going to be held accountable for at the end. The end. What's my end state? That end state, I got to admit, the end state takes a lot of work for most of us to get to it, right? Judas didn't just become a traitor, just for fun. There's probably some deviant thoughts along the way, some greed, some love of money is mentioned, all these things. It was building up before, right? Somewhere here, towards his adult age. And then that led to the betrayal and his suicide, basically. His damnation. The right-hand thief also was probably not a very cold-blooded thief. He wouldn't steal, rob your grandma, He probably stole out of need, for example. Let's pretend that was what his attitude was. He needed some food, so he stole. He did whatever. He probably had some sort of good heart to see on the cross what nobody else saw, right? That of all the times to say, this is my God, remember me in your kingdom. You remember me, O Lord, when you come into your kingdom. The cross is probably the hardest time to do that. Resurrection? Yeah, okay. But if I just see Christ crucified, most people, St. Mary, a lot of people were distraught. It was all the disciples fled, right? Only we have John the Beloved and St. Mary, and a few of the other women. That's all we have. But this thief, God gave him that grace because probably some sort of accepting or malleable heart. It was willing to see. Okay? So in the end, and I happen to use this word by chance, that your end state is really what will what we're going to be judged by. That's why you have to pay attention to not allow the winds of the world to toss us to and fro to the point where, our end may not be so great. We could have that bitterness towards others. We could have that kind of hatred towards others because of our, the love of many grows cold. Or you can use these as stepping stones. This is my main point probably at this stage. Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I see at school what's going on with my kids. There's nothing wrong with being Christ-like about it. Going to like a school board, you see it on the TV, right? The parents who are like, the FBI is getting involved and da-da-da-da. It's like it gets out of hand. It's like a bar fight, in a school. It's like, why? So rather than do that, let's say I go to the school and I say, I just express my opinion. I'm firm about it. I don't have to be angry about it. I have to be firm, right? And then I affect change, right? You can, as a parent, if you attend those board meetings or whatever, you weren't overcome by the evil, but you overcame the evil with good, right? You will find the majority of parents, for example, that the bathroom issue where they want the transgender to go in their girls, that becomes an issue for parents who have girls, right? I mean, it's not going to fly with most parents who have girls. So, for example, if you go to the thing and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that, you find a majority of the parents are with you. You affected change in a healthy way. Now, the parents who go in and they got the boxing gloves on, no, that's not what we're talking about. They did express their opinion, but what kind of opinion, or the way they did it, what kind of evil they brought to introduced to everybody, you kind of defeated the purpose, You have to change things in a healthy way. Phone advertisements, you can't do much about that. You can minimize phone time. You can, instead of going on the phone, you can pray. You can pray the Ejbeya. You can read the Bible. I read a lot of times, sometimes I read the Bible like on my phone. Why not do it the old-fashioned way? Have a book. There's no advertisements that pop in your book, for example. And so on. Well, liberal government, we don't want to get into that right now. Work is also, it's a touchy-feely one, but you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit. Like if you're gonna hold to your opinion, you have to realize there's risk to that. Being faithful isn't easy all the time, so you have to accept the fact that, hey, I might get demoted. I might not get the promotion. I might not, whatever the case may be. That, in the long run, in the big grand scheme of things, I'm better off losing whatever, but not compromising my faith. So that's being firm and being Christ-like about it, introducing your, not opinion, your belief system, what the Lord passed to the disciples, like you're saying, and the disciples passed to us. There's nothing wrong with holding to that, But there is something wrong with being like in your face about it, I think. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to be like, I believe this, and you start like protesting and you're angry. That, there's no place for that either, right? Be Christ. Like what I mean is, I never heard of Christ with like a protest sign and like walking around a building, whatever the case may be. It's a freedom that we have in this country to express your opinion in certain locations and stuff like that. That's fine, but whatever you do, keep Christ as your model. Let me just put it that way, okay? And then last week, so that's what I'm saying. Use these as stepping stones, right, to get you to the kingdom, okay? Over here, this isn't the best situation. Rather than letting your heart grow cold and be overcome by these. Because these are there, right? I mean, it says the love of many will grow cold, but there were those few elect that didn't grow cold. We want to be in that category, okay? Neighbor, there's a lot to say about neighbor, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. There's, who is your neighbor? And then Christ talks about the Good Samaritan and how far that person went to take care of others. For me, I don't know. I just love this verse. Do not be overcome by evil. Overcome evil with good. Someone last week actually did ask about, isn't it unfair, since anyway we're talking about the end of days, to those who lived during those, like who will live, for example, during the end of days. It says there will be tribulation, the sun will go dark and the moon will fall, like this, all these things, right? And we came to the conclusion last week that we're all, I guess Kathy was here and she was saying like we're all put here for a specific, in this specific time, in this specific place for a specific purpose. And likewise, we have to apply the same thing to those people who live all the way at the end of time, at the second coming. God will have a specific purpose and a specific reason for that type of, those personalities, those souls to be alive during that time. Okay? And He will choose the elect to live at that time. And you have to, and there will be some who are not elect. And those people, I'm just guessing here. This isn't a definite. But there are some people who, like, no matter what period, epoch in life that they would have lived in, they might not have chosen God. So they may live at the end of days, and it's not because the times were so hard that they couldn't handle it, that they gave in, that they didn't choose God. No, it was because they just didn't want it. That's the problem. And this is probably the biggest, I'm going to end with this verse, I think. Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit more, but as far as time. But this is an important verse to remember. 1 Corinthians 10:13. This applies to us now, and this applies to those who lived at the end of days. No temptation is overtaking you, except such as is common to man. Even those at the end of days, they will all go through the tribulation together, as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not, this is the key verse, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. That applies to us and those people at the end of days. Even those people, with the moon, the sun falling, becoming dark, and the moon not giving its light, and the stars fall, and all earthquakes and all these things. God, that's what I said earlier today, let God be true and every man a liar. Right? He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape that you may be able to bear it. So, this is probably the conclusion of the dealing with this, the winds of the world. Don't worry. I know it's easy for me to say, with the parents are struggling. But anything you face, remember this verse, that He has not given you anything more than you can handle. And with God's grace, you'll be able to overcome and use it as a stepping stone, actually, to go up rather than down, to be warm, right, rather than having your love grow cold. You can go two ways. That's what I was talking about earlier today. And every temptation, even the end of days, God already measured it out for each person. This person can handle this much. She can handle this much. She can handle this much. So just like in the story of Job, the devil can't cross a certain limit because that will be too much for you. Okay? This is true for us now, and what I'm saying is in the end of days. And we can look at this crazy stuff as our end of days, our mini end of days, or whatever, the difficulty that we're going through. Although it seems overwhelming, He measured it out for each person so that it will not overwhelm you. It will not be more than you can handle. Finally, we'll take a look at Joseph the Righteous as a model. We have 10 minutes, right, Monica, or what?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. He's a model of how to deal with ourselves and others in the ups and downs of life. Pope Shenouda also has another wonderful sermon about Joseph the Righteous. So far we have one reassurance about like how to let God drive, and then we have Joseph the Righteous. He talks about his life in general. He points out how Joseph was very hard on himself at the beginning of his life, sort of, right? St. John the Short asks, the great desert father St. John the Short, he asks, who sold Joseph to like the people, to the wayfarers in Egypt or whatever? Who sold Joseph? Who knows the answer to his brothers? His brothers, right? Wrong. It's his humility, because all he had to do was say, "This is my brother," or "These are my brothers. They cannot own me to sell me. You have to own somebody to sell him." All he had to say was, I am their brother. And then he would have been let go. But he didn't. He said, okay, you want to sell me? Go ahead. You know, he let it happen. So that's what I like about how he dealt. That's the way to deal with yourself. That's the way we have to have that humility that Christ had. And to crucify me? Go ahead. Right? He sees the greater purpose. Joseph probably saw the greater purpose. Somehow this would be good for his soul. He doesn't know how. But he said, okay, I will allow it. That's yourself. These things, you got to be careful because you're dealing with your kids and stuff like that in some of these situations. But when it comes to yourself, you want to let me go from work? Okay, but I'm not going to give in on what I believe in, right? I'm not going to be angry about it, but this is what I believe. With a smile on your face, I'll walk right out that door. Sorry. That's the way it goes. There's, you know, you're not being like hard-headed. I mean, you're basically given a choice. And, you know, you're humble enough to just walk out and I'll find another job. God will provide. That's okay. How did he deal with his brothers? The tears. The tears are probably one, St. Pope Shenouda, he taught us a really wonderful thing about this, is that Joseph, he got sold by his brother, at the hands of his brothers through his humility. He, you know, was accused of rape by this, you know, evil woman. He got thrown in jail because of that. The prison lengthened, right? He stayed longer than he really should have in prison. Did he ever shed a tear for any of that? It's not recorded in the Bible that one drop fell from his eye, given the severity of the situation. But when he came to meet his brothers, his heart melted, right? How? Like, look how harsh he was, or how humble he was. He just let it. You want to sell me? Sell me. You know, never shed a tear. But finally, when he met his brothers again, he couldn't. He had to like go in the back. It said he had to, you know, everybody away from him. Then he would shed some tears, and he would come back and pretend like he was being harsh with them again. You know, this is a good example for everybody. You don't cry because of the severity or the winds of the world, right? This is a perfect example, almost perfect example. Christ is the perfect example, but he's like a human, Old Testament, good example for this. You don't let this situation break you and bring you to tears and all these things, but your heart should be filled with love to your brothers and your sisters to the point where you will shed tears, you know, thinking about how much he missed his brother Benjamin specifically, you know. Be like, maybe this is ingrained in me as a monk, but be harsh on yourself, but be very soft on others. You know, you don't want to enable people, but at the same time, you want to be very compassionate and loving towards others. But with yourself, there's no need to take it easy, because that leads to, you know, vices. It leads to laziness. It leads to gluttony. It leads to so on and so forth, you know. But if I, you know, have this distinction, myself, not going to take it easy on anybody. Others, I'm going to love you with all my heart. If I'm able to do this kind of dual path in your life, then you'll find your life is going to be very, very full of God's love. It will be, you'll climb up that ladder of divine ascent very quickly. And you'll find that instead of, you know, your heart growing cold, that warmth will lead you to the kingdom of heaven within your heart. And glory be unto our God now and to the ages of ages. Any questions? We have 5 minutes of questions, according to Monica. 5 minutes.
I have example for you.
Yes.
Remember for Libya merchants.
Yes, the
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're gonna be to be killed.
Yes.
But they were very calm, looking at the sky
Right.
and accepting everything. So
Right? And
very hard time.
yes, that was a beautiful example as well. It reminds us of like Saint Stephen the martyr, right? And do not hold it accountable against them when they were stoning him.
Yeah.
These, I don't know all the specifics. I didn't read too much about the Libya, but I mean, they're of course a wonderful example about how they were very accepting of being unjustly martyred. The key word is like forgive them for they not know what they do. You're actually looking for the salvation of those who are looking to kill you. You know, that's like, you know, if you can fulfill that, you have You're in a good. You're here. You're over here somewhere. Not down here. Your heart is warm. Yes. 5 minutes. Yes.
To the point that Uncle Todd made
Yeah.
earlier, so like when we think about the life of Jesus, I mean, he spent most of his time among sinners and
Mhm.
people who were really in need of, I guess, help.
Agreed. Agreed. But the thing is, like, he was very harsh, for example, with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, right?
Right.
Why? They didn't want to repent, and he tried. He tried multiple times, and then finally comes the big woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because that was it. They were that hard-headed to the point where it resulted in a rebuke. That was the only way maybe they would wake up at that point. So I still leave that disclaimer, like all the sinners that he was staying with, they were repentant. Zacchaeus, he was a thief, most likely, a tax collector, or whatever the case may be. But what did he do? He gave away half of his goods, and the other half he would repay. So whatever he took unjustly would repay, I think, fourfold or sevenfold. Right? I mean, he lived repentance completely. You know.
I mean, it's kind of similar to what we have today in the opposite way, because back then, like, they were sinners, and everybody knew they were sinners,
Mhm.
and they probably knew they were sinners in a sense.
Yeah.
Whereas the Pharisees and Sadducees were the exemplary people,
Right.
but they didn't know this. And nowadays, it's the opposite. Those who are deviant, in a sense, think
Mhm.
they're correct. And that's where it becomes tricky. It's like someone who's struggling with some of these things.
What do you mean those who are deviant are correct?
Like, they're, like, like transsexual.
Oh, I
think
see.
they are
In
correct.
schools. Right.
Right, that's
yeah.
the normal.
Yes. Yes.
Where, so it's kind of makes it a little, in a sense, they kind of the Pharisees, I don't know. But it makes it
Maybe.
hard to approach these people because they think they're right.
Well,
There's an aggressiveness,
yeah.
and a belief that they are the morally superior.
Well, can't they make that same argument about us? I don't know. I mean,
They're saying they're more inclusive than we are.
But they are unnatural, it's not natural.
right.
And that's my defense to them, is that
It is.
I'm a natural person,
Right.
and you're not.
That's fine, but like you still want to be a little more Christ-like in approach, right? You can explain what you believe. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but there's that convincing part of convince, rebuke, exhort, right? There's 3 parts to that. You want to bring somebody over to here, right? We enjoy the time with Christ. We enjoy the body and blood, like we're saying. This is it. Like, there's nothing better than this. I want that for everybody. Let me show you, if you're willing. If you're not willing, maybe I'll pray for you, and there will be a time when you will be willing with somebody else. It doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody. But the point is that you always have that love for others to bring them. Yes.
Father Thomas Hopko has a nice series called Speaking the Truth in Love,
Yes.
and he does cover this topic in a
Okay.
number of his.
It's worth us listening a little bit more before we decide how we're going to approach things. But as I said, keep your model as Christ.
But also context is important. If you're speaking to one person
Sure?
that's struggling with this,